Hello and welcome to the Deployment in Microsoft Dynamics 365 course. This course will focus on the following objectives. First, we will spend some time getting started with Dynamics 365 and get some important items out of the way, such as licensing and some basics regarding data import. We will then move to Module 2, where we dive deeper into Dynamics 365 subscriptions and how to manage them. We will then break a subscription into instances and learn the details behind administrating these instances, including those times when we have to get them upgraded to the newest version of Dynamics 365. After that, we will focus on the details behind integrating Dynamics 365 with other Microsoft Online business solutions. We will tackle the new concept of Dynamics 365 apps, learn how to interact with Dynamics 365 via Microsoft Outlook, and we will wrap up the course learning how mobile devices can be leveraged to access all of the functionality available to Microsoft Dynamics 365 users. So let's start the course with Module 1. In this module, I'll start by describing the different ways to access Microsoft Dynamics 365. We will spend some time learning about licensing plans available, walk through important things to know when planning a deployment, and detail best practices to follow when importing data into a Microsoft Dynamics 365 deployment. Microsoft Dynamics 365 unifies customer relationship management and enterprise resource planning capabilities into applications that work seamlessly together across sales, customer service, field service, operations, financials, marketing, and project service automation. These critical path tools will be working under a single common data model. The ability for these applications to work together and integrate seamlessly is a great benefit for tons of organizations out there. However, organizations without the need for the complete set of functionality available via Microsoft Dynamics 365 can still benefit from the flexibility and affordability built into this cloud solution by purchasing licenses that allow users to leverage the limited functionality they need and add access to more applications in the future as the business grows and the reach of Dynamics 365 grows within the organization. We will have more information regarding licensing later on this module. All of the subscription and instance management, including licensing, is performed in the Office 365 platform and the Office 365 Admin Center. Although this course is focused on Microsoft Dynamics 365 hosted on the Microsoft Cloud, there is also a version of Microsoft Dynamics 365 on-premise that can be hosted and managed internally or accessed via a partner-hosted subscription. Accessing Microsoft Dynamics 365 is possible with a web browser, which requires no installation, but it does have minimum requirements that we will cover on the next slide. Users can also access Dynamics 365 by installing an add-in on Microsoft Outlook. This add-in enables offline working and integration between CRM and Exchange to track and synchronize items such as emails, tasks, and appointments. Users can also install mobile and tablet apps for accessing Dynamics 365 on the go. And in case of a user owning a device either not supported by the current mobile or tablet applications, users can connect to Microsoft Dynamics 365 with the internet browser on their mobile device. Some of the functionality available on the official apps that can be installed on phones and tablets will not be available when accessing Dynamics 365 with the device's browser, and this is why this client is called the Microsoft Dynamics 365 for Phones Express. Microsoft Dynamics 365 also provides a portal that can be configured to enable interaction with Dynamics 365 without leveraging one of the solutions we just described. And there are other companies out there who also provide custom solutions that enable access to Microsoft Dynamics 365 data and functionality. However, there are some special considerations to have in mind from the licensing perspective, and we will discuss this later on this module. In addition to having a recommended bandwidth greater than 400 kilobits per second, here are the browsers supported by the currently supported versions of Windows. As you can see, Microsoft Dynamics 365 can be accessed with Microsoft Internet Explorer 10, 11, and Microsoft Edge. Also, the last publicly released versions of Mozilla Firefox and Google Chrome. Notice that not all of the versions of these browsers are supported on all of the different versions of the Windows operating system. For example, notice that Windows 10 is the only operating system in which Microsoft Edge is supported. Also, Notice that only the last publicly released versions of Firefox and Chrome are supported. This means that if a user is running into some issues navigating in Dynamics 365 with an older version of one of these browsers and a case is open with the Dynamics 365 customer support team, the first troubleshooting step the customer service rep will request is for the browsers to be updated to the latest publicly released version. The same would apply if, for example, a user was running into some issues accessing some Dynamics 365 functionality with Microsoft Edge from his or her Windows 8.1 machine. The first troubleshooting step to take would be to try to accomplish the task on a supported browser for Windows 8.1, like Internet Explorer 11, for example. Now, obviously, not every user will be accessing Dynamics 365 from a Windows machine. Because of this, the web client is also available from other third-party operating systems. For users connecting from a tablet running Android 10, the latest publicly released version of Google Chrome will be the only supported browser. Also, for users accessing from a Mac, either with Mac OS 10.8, 9, or 10, as well as connecting with an Apple iPad, the supported browsers will be the latest publicly released version of Apple Safari. It is important to mention that some users do install other browsers on these devices, and access to Dynamics 365 may be available and operate as expected. The fact that these browsers and OS combination wouldn't be supported doesn't mean that accessing Dynamics 365 would be impossible. It just means that the Microsoft Dynamics 365 product team didn't test every possible combination of operating system and browser available in the market. Now, these details are all dependent on the minimum and recommended hardware requirements as well. For example, the minimum requirements for the web client includes a 1.9 GHz dual-core processor with SSE 2 instruction set, 2 GB of RAM, and a Super VGA monitor with a resolution of 1024 by 768 at a minimum. The recommended requirements bump the processor to 3.3 GHz and the memory to 4 GB or more. Most modern PCs would surpass these minimum requirements and even the recommended ones, so you don't typically find yourself struggling with meeting these requirements. However, if you need to acquire new PCs for users who will be accessing Dynamics 365, don't purchase PCs with the minimum set of requirements because even though the functionality will work, the processing time could affect the user experience. In situations where I've had to select the PCs for all of the users to access Dynamics 365, I always remember one important user experience fact. Minimum requirements equals minimum performance. So plan accordingly. In addition to Windows Server 2012 and 2012 R2 being available to run Microsoft Dynamics 365 for Outlook as a remote desktop services application, Windows 7 with Service Pack 1, Windows 8, 8.1, and Windows 10 are all supported in the 32 and 64-bit versions. Microsoft Outlook from Microsoft Office 365, as well as 2016, 2013, and 2010 are all supported. And either Internet Explorer 10 or 11 wrap up the list of software prerequisites to operate the Microsoft Dynamics 365 for Outlook client. Also, in addition to the software requirements needed for the web client, users will also need a minimum of 1.5 gigabytes of available hard disk space, with 2 or more gigabytes of free space recommended, on a hard drive running at 7200 RPM or more. Now, after seeing that Internet Explorer 10 or 11 are required to install and use the Microsoft Dynamics 365 for Outlook client, you might be wondering, well, what happens if I want to access the Outlook client functionality from the Outlook Mail client on my phone or Outlook Web Access or even a Mac? The requirements we described on the previous slide apply to what we call the traditional Outlook client, which, as we mentioned, it's an add-in each user has to install and configure to be able to synchronize Dynamics 365 records with Outlook folders and also to access some of the functionality and data from Dynamics 365 while offline. There is a way for users to be able to synchronize Dynamics 365 records with Outlook folders and access Dynamics 365 capabilities from their phones, Outlook Web Access, or even Microsoft Outlook running on a Mac, and this solution is called the Dynamics 365 app for Outlook. This solution is enabled on the server side instead of on the user's PC. And by doing this, not only it loads much faster for users, but also ensures that the functionality is available on all of the different platforms Microsoft Outlook is available on. Here you can see the app loaded on the right pane within Microsoft Outlook. And notice the ability to track the email, set regarding, and all of the related information from Dynamics 365 related to the people included in the email. Although we won't have the opportunity to dig deeper into this app within this module, we will dig a little deeper into the functionality of this app within this course. I believe it is important that you're aware of it, so you can plan how you provide access to this important set of functionality to all users within your organization during the deployment of Microsoft Dynamics 365. We will dive deeper into all of the moving parts of the app for Outlook in Module 7. Users can access Microsoft Dynamics 365 data from mobile devices in different ways. They can install and use the apps for Windows, iOS, and Android mobile devices, or they can run the Dynamics 365 web app on the device's preferred browser. On this table, you can find all of the supported platforms and the methods used to access Microsoft Dynamics 365. Now, keep in mind that these devices must have a minimum 1 GB of RAM available. Users who try to view Microsoft Dynamics 365 on an unsupported browser may be redirected to Microsoft Dynamics 365 for Phones Express. This is a basic service that has limited functionality and isn't intended to serve as a substitute for the full feature set of the Microsoft Dynamics 365 app for phones or tablets. It is recommended that users choose a supported browser or a Microsoft Dynamics 365 app specific to the device. When it comes to tablets, downloading and installing the app is the best way to access Microsoft Dynamics 365. However, the web browser on the tablet can also be used. We will explore some of the functionality that will not be available if a browser is used in a couple of minutes. All tablets running Windows 8 or later with 1 GB or more of memory and a 720p resolution are supported, and the best experience is achieved via the app downloaded from the store. When it comes to iPads, iOS 7 through 10 are supported on 3rd generation or later iPads with a 9-inch screen or larger. Now, there are plenty of tablets with a screen of 7 inches or more running Android in the market, and Microsoft supports access to Dynamics 365 on the Samsung Galaxy Tab 4 and S running Android 4.4, Samsung Galaxy Tab 3 running Android 4.2.2, Samsung Galaxy Note 10 running Android 4.3, the Google Nexus 10 running Android 4.2, 4.4, and 5.0, and finally, the Asus Transformer Pad Infinity TF700 running Android 4.2. Now, I understand that trying to remember the brands and models of tablets running the different operating systems can be a little overwhelming, and you might be inclined to recommend using the web browsers within the tablets instead. It is true that you can access Microsoft Dynamics 365 in the default web browser on any of the supported tablets listed earlier, and using Microsoft Dynamics 365 on a web browser on an Apple or Android mobile device provides a similar experience to using it with the web browser on a desktop or a laptop computer. However, some features are not going to be available, like for example, pinch and zoom, Yammer, reports, customizations or editors, system settings, advanced find, process dialogues, Skype for business presence, adding attachments to notes for Apple iPad users with Dynamics 365 on-premise, entities that use classic forms such as goals, for example. So keep that in mind when considering to bypass the app altogether and using the browser instead. All the minimum and recommended requirements covered in this module are current by the time of this recording, which happened shortly after general availability of Microsoft Dynamics 365. But always make sure you refer to TechNet for the latest details regarding supported technologies. Now let's talk a little bit about licensing. In the Dynamics 365 world, there are two editions, a Business Edition and an Enterprise Edition. The Business Edition is optimized for 10 to 250 employees, particularly the 10 to 100 employee segment. It will contain Project Madera, which will be called Financials, as well as a sales and marketing application. It will be cloud only, and it has a 300 seat maximum, which aligns to what you're familiar with on the Office 365 side. The Enterprise Edition is optimized for 250 or more employees. It will include the CRM Online and AX products you know today. It includes online and on-premise dual user rights, so customers don't need to move online to move to Dynamics 365. And it contains a 20 user minimum on offers which include AX. There is no CRM seat minimum with this offering. With Dynamics 365, Microsoft did not only evolve their product strategy, they've also tried to reinvent their approach to pricing and packaging. The predominant licensing motion will continue to be per user, but in the future, users will be grouped in two categories. The first category is your light users. This is the broad user base that predominantly consumes data and reports and completes light tasks like time entry and HR updates. This user base provides the basis for enterprise-wide offers. Also, this user base hasn't been a focus for Microsoft in the past, but will definitely be in the future. The second category of users is full users. Full users are the users who leverage the majority of the business app's functionality. They have also been referred to as pros, power users, and so on. They have also been referred to as pros, power users, and so on. These users will be able to purchase in two ways. The first is using app-based licensing. Let me share some information with you about enterprise-level packaging. We'll start at the bottom with the team members offering, which is a single offering that is the foundation for the packaging structure. As you heard a minute ago, this offer targets our light user base and supports an enterprise sales motion. On top of that, we see the comprehensive offerings called apps. First is operations. As a reminder, this used to be called AX7. Second, we have Plan 1 business apps. These, as we discussed earlier, are the new packaging for the current CRM Online components. Both operations and the Plan 1 business apps contain team member rights. Next, we have the Power Apps offering, which includes Flow. This is the full Power Apps and Flow service, which includes extended functionality and extensibility beyond that which is included in each of the individual biz apps and team member licenses. On top of that, we have the two plans that expand beyond the app functionality. The first plan is called Plan 1 and includes all of the existing CRM Online components and full Power Apps and team members. The second plan is Plan 2, which basically includes Plan 1 plus operations. The last thing I want to point out is tier pricing. Tier pricing is a discounted pricing for customers who purchase more seats of selected SKUs like Plan 1 and team members. Microsoft added this exciting and new pricing mechanism to help incent customers to expand seats of existing or new workloads. Let's talk about what will come standard when you start a subscription of either Plan 1 business apps or the Operations app. All Plan 1 business apps like Sales, Field Service, Customer Service, and Project Service Automation will leverage the same tenant and infrastructure will accrue across this one tenant. Operations leverages an entirely different tenant. First, instances. Organizations will get one production and one non-production instance included for Plan 1 business apps and likewise for operations. In addition to that, Plan 1 business apps will also include the first portal to extend engagements across customers, partners, and employees, limited to 1 million page views per month. Next, it's storage. And this area received many changes from the former CRM Online deployment. Included storage is now increasing from 5 gigs to 10 gigs. And in addition to that, Microsoft is also doubling how fast additional storage is earned, from 2.5 gigs per 20 Pro seats to 5 gigs per 20 full or non-team member users. You might also note that Microsoft removed the maximum of 50 gigs of free storage. Just to give you an idea, a company with 500 professional user licenses of CRM Online had 55 gigs of free included storage. Under the new licensing for Dynamics 365, the same company would have 135 gigs of free included storage, 2.5 times the size. Finally, all business apps will include dual user rights, where an equivalent functionality exists on premise. This allows online users to access functionality on premises without the need of an extra license. And to close out licensing, I wanted to mention that Dynamics 365 supports and offers licenses for both named user and devices accessing the solution functionality. Let's walk through the differences of these two license types. If an individual accesses the server using more than one device, license the individual with a user subscription license. The user license is a named user, so that user can use any device without the need of any additional license. A device license allows any number of individuals to access the service using the same device. Logging in through a shared device ID such as kiosk1 at Microsoft.com, accessing via shared device means the users will not have to individually be tracked or auditable, which means that this will make more sense for customers who don't need to track a particular user or who are on a scenario with shared equipment. And of course, organizations can have a mix of user and device subscription licenses. As you start planning a deployment, you need to keep a couple of items in mind. A Microsoft Dynamics 365 implementation can be a significant undertaking depending on the nature of the project, so it is important that the implementation is carefully and thoroughly planned. Most deployments of Dynamics 365 originate from another system, such as Dynamics CRM on-premise, so you need to consider how the data will be imported into Dynamics 365. We will discuss a couple of ways to import data in this module. Another thing to keep in mind is that Dynamics 365 comes with tons of amazing functionality that can make a huge impact on the business outcomes of any organization. So it is important to analyze those business requirements and think of ways to leverage the newly available functionality to drive the business to better achieve those requirements. Depending on the age and data quality best practices followed by the organization, migrations can include large amounts of data, so thinking about how much storage will be required right now and in the future is always important. Once the data is in the system, you need to think about which users will be accessing the data and what will they be able to do with the data they can access. So before the migration takes place, take some time to plan the levels of access to entities and other features. As with every Dynamics 365 deployment, it is important that the organization has access to other environments to conduct development and training amongst other functions without affecting or using the production environment. In addition to production and non-production instances included in the Dynamics 365 subscription, it is recommended to leverage another instance for training or dev purposes. As we discussed over the last few slides, licensing in Dynamics 365 is very flexible, so take the time to plan which users will be light, which users will be full, and from those, which ones will require access to an app or need to be bumped up to a plan. Take advantage of the mix and match capabilities of Dynamics 365 licensing if it meets your business requirements. Lastly, we only get one shot at a first impression. If you plan for users to log in using their internal credentials, please make sure you plan to implement single sign-on. This will prevent users having to learn a new set of credentials to log into Dynamics 365 and then later have to change it back to their internal credentials. Plan early to ensure a seamless transition to the users. Now you're ready to follow best practices and you have acquired your licenses and your instances are up and ready. But who will be responsible for the project? Sometimes a team of individuals or one or two individuals fulfilling various roles will be responsible for the implementation. Roles include business managers who determine how the business uses Microsoft Dynamics 365, including mapping business processes to Dynamics 365, deciding on default values, and identifying any required customizations, customization technical staff who implements the planned customizations, network technical staff who are typically responsible for managing how Dynamics 365 is accessed and administered, and a project manager who manages the project. Organizations that implement these solutions may use the services of an independent software vendor or a value-added reseller, a consultant, or other organization that is partnered with Microsoft. Microsoft provides the Microsoft Dynamics SureStep Evolve methodology to partners. This is a complete Microsoft Dynamics 365 implementation methodology that includes project management discipline and field-tested best practices, plus some user-friendly tools that can help you deploy, migrate, configure, and upgrade Microsoft Dynamics products. Microsoft Dynamics SureStep Evolved is available to Microsoft partners to help reduce risk and guide those partners through the tasks associated with the deployment and configuration of Microsoft Dynamics solutions. For more information about Microsoft Dynamics SureStep, including training methodology and tool downloads, visit the Partner Source website. Most Microsoft Dynamics 365 deployments require bringing in existing data. There are several ways to import data. You can use the Import Data Wizard in the web application for simple scenarios. You can programmatically import data using the SDK, but this will require some development, which is typically reserved only for complex migrations. There are several third-party tools you can use to perform the migration, or you can use a service from Microsoft called the Data Loader service. Lastly, a new service called the On-Premise to Online Conversion service allows organizations to migrate from Microsoft Dynamics 2011 on-premises and above to Dynamics 365. Let me show you how this new service operates. Now, before we get started, I want you to keep in mind this service is available at this point in private preview only, but once it's generally available, the service will allow organizations to use a copy of their internal Microsoft Dynamics CRM database by uploading it into a staging area in Microsoft Azure, where checks will be run to ensure the customer organization is in a supported state before getting customizations, configuration data, and entity data migrated to Dynamics 365. Depending on the version of Dynamics CRM the organization is migrating from, the process will be different, as you can see on this slide. Also, it is important to understand that there is a built-in validation service that will allow organizations to convert and fix their unsupported customizations in order to migrate them into Dynamics 365. In planning the import, there are several things that you need to consider. First, how much legacy data do you need to bring into Dynamics 365? Is it all of the data, some, or maybe even none? It's not unheard of for organizations to start from scratch. You might apply a data cutoff so that data that is older than, say, 3 years is ignored in the import process. Do not underestimate the time needed to export and import data. The time to import data not only includes getting the data into the right format for import, but also the time it takes to actually import the data. For very large data sets, it can literally take days for the data to be imported. Also, when are you going to cleanse the legacy data? You could do this before the import, or you might say, let's just bring all this data into Dynamics 365 and then do the cleansing afterwards. I always recommend organizations to clean the data before the import, but there are some cases where that process is not possible, either due to the amount of sources of data and the feasibility of bringing it all together in one place to get it clean, or it could be due to the way the customer is choosing to import their data into Dynamics 365. Some customers even want to enter the data manually so they can apply data quality rules as they enter it into the system. And also, bear in mind that some record types require special consideration. For example, quote records cannot be imported in a state other than draft. So if you're already using CRM 2016 on premises, for example, and you have quotes that go back many years, you will need to figure out a way of how to bring them in and get them into the right status. Speaking of how long data can take to be imported, the Data Loader is a service provided by Microsoft to help customers with large volumes of data migrating into Dynamics 365. The service is provided as part of Lifecycle Services for Dynamics. The idea behind this service is for organizations to host the data that needs to be imported on Azure, on the same data center where their Dynamics 365 instance is hosted. By doing this, organizations can achieve amazing speeds during data import, I have personally seen 500 records imported per second. So even on a data set of several million records, using Data Loader can cut the import time dramatically. In summary, this module focused on the information that helps us getting started deploying Dynamics 365. We spent some time describing the different clients available to access Dynamics 365. We went over the different license plans and some of the options available to organizations implementing Dynamics 365. And we also walked through some of the best practices to follow when planning a deployment and also when importing data.